Welcome to this week's edition of TBD with Coach Kraushaar. I'm Joel Kraushaar. As the topic is always to be determined, we're your local show for sports activities as well as arts, and maybe even some alumni will pop in every once in a while. Last week, we had Tom Olsis, the Muscatine High School Activities Director, talking about some of the things going on with fall sports and other activities in our community. And this week, our guest on the Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning TBD with Coach Kraushaar will be Teale Burford, the Assistant Director of Choral Activities at Muscatine High School. Again, Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning bringing you our show every week. Go ahead and check out their website as much as you can. Your leader for HVAC as well as your leader for outdoor living. Get your Green Mountain pellet grills, your Weber smoke fire grills, and any other outdoor kitchen and outdoor living supply shop. They have everything from pellets for your grills to spatulas to aprons to even spice rubs for whatever you're cooking as we still wrap up this summer. And stay tuned at the end of the episode for one of my recipes that I make on my Green Mountain pellet grill. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on, again, someone I get the pleasure of also calling my friend, Teale Burford, who is our guest today. Again, the Assistant Director of Choral Activities at Muscatine High School. Teale, welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel. Great to be on TBD with you.
This is fun. So, music is something that I think that people don't realize how much has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, as far as not just in our education setting, but it was very well documented at the early onset of the pandemic. A church choir in the Pacific Northwest had a tremendous infection rate and unfortunately some fatalities. And that was when we learned from epidemiologists that choral singing actually has a high transmission rate. And in order to make it safer for us to participate in these activities, some modifications to the day needed to be made. You'll appreciate this, having gone to high school in the Omaha metropolitan area. I was talking last night with one of my college friends who is a director in that area. Their precautions that they were told were to have their choir rehearsals outside. That was the recommendation, which I think we know as musicians. For the listeners, I actually went to college to be a high school choir director. That was my major, was secondary vocal music education. And singing outside is not an easy thing to do. And so that's a very difficult thing to ask your students to do. And you have kind of had the opportunity and done some research to find a solution that allows a more traditional rehearsal activity.
Yeah, I have spent all summer attending webinars. I have been reading abstracts. I've been watching a study along with hundreds, thousands of other choral directors. I've been following this study that's being done in Colorado at the University of Colorado at Boulder. It's also being duplicated at the University of let me check my notes here. It's being duplicated at the University, I think, of Maryland. The University of Maryland is duplicating it just to, make sure that they're coming up with reliable results. And so I've been following that pretty closely. I've reviewed the findings and they've come out with preliminary findings. And I've been making Olson masks the entire summer. And this was the type of mask that was recommended by Unity Point hospitals and clinics. And so that's what I've been making. And I've really just tried to keep up on the research. I've tried to educate myself in terms of how best to approach this very strange situation. And it turns out that choral musicians are at an increased risk of transmission because of the fact that our art is kind of spit.
You spit. You spit. Point blank, you spit. No one ever wanted to stand in front of me when we were singing something in German. Let's just put it that way.
I tell you what, I can't count the number of times that I've been told by a director, by a conductor, You should be spitting on the person in front of
Yes.
you with your consonants. I mean,
Yes.
we as pro musicians have heard that so many times. And
Spit
now
out your T's.
Yep, spit it out. We are projecting, we are literally projecting as we sing, and we are pushing out air at tremendous rates for extended periods of time. And we are gulping in air in order to replenish the supply to then push it all back out. I mean, this is a really unique sort of blending of events that have brought choral musicians to a very risky place, unfortunately. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
One of the greatest examples I think of it right now in pop culture is, most people have watched Hamilton on Disney Plus, if they've got Disney Plus, and Jonathan Groff as King George has a moment in that recording where you can just physically see it's become memed, it's been gifted, it's whatever it is. You see him, just a giant wad of saliva comes flying out of his mouth, and it's unapologetic. That is what happens. Being a performer is. I mean, it's you spit.
That is a perfect example of the type of verve that performers have to have, and it results in us sweating and spitting, and I mean, we're talking theater, people in theater, we're talking people in music, and I mean, there are more bodily fluids involved in music than anybody ever thought, and we're just kind of realizing it and acknowledging it, and in this pandemic, it's become a unique risk.
Yeah, I think I think of my time as a French horn player. When you got a 32 bar.
You played the French horn.
I did when I was in middle school. I was a French horn player.
I played the French horn for 11 years.
I was a 5-year French horn player. We've known each other for how long, and we're just now discovering this?
I know, I didn't know that.
Well, you have to spin that thing around and just watch your saliva. It's condensation, as any band director will tell you. But it is for the most part condensation. But there is, and I'm sorry to the listener that we're going in great detail, but this detail is what we need to show as to why you've had to help create a solution for your students who are going to be returning to the classroom in a few weeks. Now, you mentioned the Olson Mask, and then there's some continued research that has moved us in the direction of, I believe the way that you phrased it on social media was it was a singer's mask, or I don't know exactly what it's called, but you were kind of briefly before this showing me the difference. Go into maybe some detail as to how this mask is different and how it actually not only helps keep the singer safer, but also doesn't completely inhibit the production of sound while you're singing.
The Olson Mask is a mask that we've all seen when we're out at the grocery store or whatever. And there are a lot of different styles of masks, but all of them lie on the face. So I'm going to put a mask just so you can kind of hear the difference. So I'm not wearing a mask right now. I'm in my home, so I'm not wearing a mask. I'm just going to put on an Olson mask. So I've got an Olson mask on right now, and I'm sure it's very obvious that something has come between me and the microphone. And so what I'm experiencing here is the mask is lying on my cheeks, my chin, my nose, and it's actually touching my lips. So I'm going to take that off. So a regular mask lies on the face. It lies on the lips, most importantly, and around the mouth. And most masks, and some of them have a lot more room, but most masks don't go under the chin very far. They'll go kind of beyond the point of the chin so that it kind of hooks to the bottom of your face. And kind of, it doesn't seal off unless you've actually had it fitted to your face, but it doesn't really, it doesn't leave it open so that moisture can be blown out through the bottom of the mask. The singer's was I can't say that it was created by the Broadway Relief Project, but it wherever it came from, the Broadway Relief Project is selling these masks. They are very roomy. They go under the chin, and they actually are structured so that it holds. There is a chamber that sits in front of the face. So it wraps around from the ear, it goes under the chin, over the nose, and since it's held out from the face, you actually have a little chamber of space between your mouth and the mask where your sound can resonate. So before going into more detail about the design, the Broadway Relief Project is selling these, and they're if you order 100 or more, they're $20 a piece, which is very reasonable.
Right.
If you are having, you've got a community choir and you're going to require everybody to buy one or something like that. For grades 7 through 12, which are the grades that choir is offered in Muscatine at Susan Clark Junior High and at Muscatine High School, that's over 400 kiddos. And that's a ton of money. That is thousands of dollars for $20 a mask. And so I was kind of feeling defeated because it was like, how am I going to get this funding? Because so many programs need so many things, so many mitigations that they need to purchase for their classrooms. Music is just one of them. So how can I get these masks? Well, I knew that this was out. But Joan Fernley, who is a soprano, she's a performer and she's a choral conductor. I believe she's located up in Canada. She figured out a design that is very comparable to the Broadway Relief Project Singer's Mask, and she shared it. So she came up with it, and she put it on, took a picture of herself, put it on Facebook, and was flooded with requests for the pattern. So she wrote the pattern, she made a tutorial, and she put it up for anybody to use, no charge, nothing like that. She just shared it. She didn't sell them, nothing like that. So that is in itself commendable, to say the least, of Joan Fernley. So she put that out, and I knew of it. I kind of looked at it. I just started sewing in March, So
I was going to say, when did you learn how to sew?
And so my mother-in-law taught me how to sew. I knew how to do, like, by hand. I knew how to do a couple of things.
Right.
Honestly, so my mother-in-law had her sewing machine out. And so I was like, can you show me how to do some of this stuff? This is a skill that I should have. The last time I used a sewing machine was in the 7th grade in Mrs. McAnally's home ec class in Ankeny, Iowa. So my mom had a sewing machine that she didn't want. She gave it to me. My mother-in-law, Cindy, she showed me the basics, how to thread it, how to use a bobbin, and all of this stuff. And then we were hit by this pandemic, and I was like, how to make masks, And so I just kind of learned by doing. I kind of fell into it. And so I was not very confident in my skills, and I don't know all the jargon and anything like that. So I've been sewing for a handful of months. I downloaded the pattern, and I kind of just sat on it for a while because I was not super confident about it. My toddlers were home. We didn't have them in daycare for about 3.5 months. And so I didn't have a lot of free time. So I finally got to it, and I sat down and I made one as we were getting closer and closer to the school year, and I didn't have the answers that I needed, and I was not feeling confident about being able to actually purchase those singer's masks, especially since there was about a 2-week turnaround to even get them. I made one, and I got caught up on a couple of steps, but at the end, I was kind of surprised at how easy it was. And so I made the decision because I'd been thinking about it for a while, and I worked on it for a couple of weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks, kind of getting my ducks in a row. And then I posted it. I got permission from the superintendent. I got permission from the school board president because I didn't want to go over their heads.
Right.
And I posted it, and it took off like crazy pants.
Yeah, it really did. You were on the local news on Channel 6 on KWQC, and then obviously you were. I reached out right away because I was like, she usually answers if I send a message. We I've got that kind of connections with Ms. Burford, but with so this mask, so there's obviously raw materials that need to be incorporated, and one of our magnificent local businesses, Neil's Sewing and Supply, kind of helped, and one of their employees kind of came to the rescue a little bit on getting you some supplies.
So Neil's Vacuum and Sewing Center is actually, I knew it was always there. I had passed it countless times. I'd never gone in. I started sewing, and I sent I sent my husband there to pick up interfacing.
I would have loved to go with Drew to a sewing center.
So he had passed it many times as well, and he said, "Did you know that this was there?" And I said, "Yeah, but I've never been inside. I don't know what they have. I don't know." And so I had always been going over to Joanne's because I knew that
Sure.
stuff was there that I needed. And he said, "Well, I want you to try this local place, And I was like, "All right." And it ended up that he actually ran over there to get interfacing for me for Olson Mask. And he came back and he said, "Teale, I want you to start going to this place. I want you to get the bulk of your stuff. Like if you need stuff from Joanne's, if Neil's doesn't have it, I want you to start going here." Because actually, oh, you know what it was? My sewing machine locked up, a joint locked up, and it needed to get repaired. That's why.
Sure.
So he took it to the sewing center to get fixed. And he came home, and they fixed it and in no time. And he came home and he's like, "I want you to start going here." He's like, "This guy there knows everything." And he
Mr. Hunt?
I don't know.
I believe he's the owner. I went to school with his daughter. She was a year younger than me. And
he said, "I don't know, maybe it's Neil. Is that Neil?" And I was like,
no. That was the original owner, and it sold to the Hunt family at one point. I don't know if they still own it. But yeah, we're giving some free advertising to a great local business, which is great because they have come to the rescue for so many during this pandemic. I've talked to multiple people that Neil's has really helped them as they've all started sewing their own masks and buying their own sewing machines. And it's great to have such a great local expert in the real intricacies of that skill.
Yeah. So, I mean, I went to see if they had black fabric. I called them and I talked to the fabric manager and I said, "Here's what I want to do." And she immediately jumped in, and we started bouncing ideas off of each other. She said, this and this and this about fabric. And I said, "Well, I need this and this and this." And so we kind of talked back and forth. That day, we talked 3 times on the phone. She was calling me, I was calling her, and she was amazing. And so the next day I went down so that I could pick out. So black fabric is in demand, high demand. Any dark colored solid fabric is really in high demand right now. And so I said, I need black fabric. Ideally, is that going to be a problem? And she said, "Well, I just got 3 bolts in." And this is quilting fabric. It's high quality quilting fabric because it's got a tighter weave. And so it's going to catch more on the way out. So we want something with a tighter weave, cotton with a tighter weave so that it catches those particles, those respiratory fluids as they leave the body. And I went in, she had these 3 bolts of fabric, and I had no funding. I picked out my colors and then I said, "Can you hold on to these for me?" And she said, "Yeah, I can hold on to them until we know, until your funding comes through and everything." And so we were talking about it, picked it out, made sure that it was in stock. Yeah, it's going to ship next week. And she said, "I'm going to buy a bolt of fabric for you." And I was like, what? And I
That's
mean,
awesome.
it's not a small purchase, you
No.
know? She bought a bolt of fabric for us. So that's 14 yards. Just to give you an idea, we only need 9.25 more yards after that.
Wow.
So she bought more than half of the fabric that we needed for the black masks. So we're going to do black masks and purple masks. And
Now, will
then
this
she also bought she bought 10 yards of elastic for me as well.
will this cover both the middle school and the high school, or is this for the high school only right now?
This is for the middle school and the high school. So Nathan Swartzendruber, who's the conductor, the director over at Susan Clark Junior High, I reached out to him when I decided to do this with the high school, and I said, hey, would you be interested? And he said, absolutely. And so we are making masks for every student in choir 7 through 12.
Wow. That's phenomenal. I think, because it's really easy, unfortunately. We're talking about all the things that we're having to postpone and cancel. And, that's really been in our lexicon as a society since March. We've had to take everything day by day, and, things have been postponed, things have been canceled. A lot of the agriculture students lost their fair time that they usually get this summer. And now we're seeing it bleed into the state marching band competitions not happening. And then now one of the other big parts of the fall in the arts is the Opus Honor Choir and the Iowa All-State Honor Choir and Orchestra and Band. Has there been any update as to what might be happening with those large music festivals that happen in November?
Yeah, Opus is a ninth grade honor choir. It's actually 5 through 9 honor choir, but so since I'm at the high school, I just do the ninth grade auditions. Those are already recorded and
Right.
submitted online. So that audition process is not going to be different. They did get materials out a lot later just because of all of the disruptions that happened. But they're keeping the same deadline because it still is. It's plenty of time, so it's going to be in September. So those auditions look very much the same. The all-state auditions in Iowa are unique. They are group auditions for the choir. They are individual auditions for band and orchestra. So the student auditioning goes in by themselves.
Is this the catalyst we can finally get to having the auditions be individual with sight singing for choir? Or am I the only one on that soapbox?
You are not. You are in very good company. I am with you on the sight singing portion. Absolutely. I don't know how this is going to affect auditions in the future, but I can tell you that sight singing, which should be a part of the audition,
100%
has been a very incendiary issue.
That's because
school teachers.
I can say this because I'm not in the Iowa Choral Directors Association. That's because it requires kids to actually show off their skill and what they and their actual ability instead of the ability to memorize something that their teachers are teaching.
I agree halfway with you.
Okay.
I think that preparation is something that a student must show. And
fair.
Preparing is hard work. And when you prepare it well. And so, but I'm with you on, just because somebody gives a good audition does not mean that they are a well-rounded musician. And what we want to encourage our students to be is a well-rounded musician. We want them to be able to read music. We want them to be able to understand the music that is in front of them and be able to interact with it to a degree that they are getting more than just regurgitating notes.
Right.
And that's really at the heart of the issue with all-state auditions. It really is about forcing, and I don't mean forcing in a bad way, but forcing kids to interact on a way deeper level with the music that's in front of them. And it's one of the reasons that I absolutely love all-state, because it's really the audition process that I love so much.
Right.
The festival is a lot of fun, but it's the audition process that I love because you see so much growth from the students. So this year it's going to look different. I am still going to demand a very high level of um, of skill and dedication, practice, and just excellence all across the board. And I think my students would not hesitate to agree with that. The bar that I set is extremely high, and that I'm not afraid to drop the hammer when it needs to be dropped. And that uh, I think that it. I'm going to take a chance here and say this.
It's a safe space.
I think most of them appreciate it.
If they don't appreciate it in the moment, they appreciate it afterwards.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Some of them may not appreciate it very much, but I'm holding them to a very high standard, and that's not going to change this year. However, they will be auditioning individually, which is a huge change. So Iowa auditions are usually in what we very casually call quartets, but it could be a duet, a trio, or a quartet. And actually, you can audition individually if you might be the only one at your two-way school that's auditioning for All-State. And in the past, way past, you could only audition full quartets. And that was a long time ago.
Yeah, because I remember
that has changed.
In 1999, I auditioned in a duet, so we were allowed to, because I think we had 32 or so, whatever we had numbered auditioning. It wasn't divisible by 4, and I volunteered to be in the duet. But
yeah, I had two students do individual auditions last year, and I try to put them in a group because I think it's a really good experience. So this year, they're not going to get that experience. A lot of them have had that experience because a good amount of the kids that are auditioning have auditioned before. But I've got some first timers that this will be their first audition for All-State, and it'll be individual. And next year, hopefully, will look normal, and we will be able to do auditions in groups. And if we've got people auditioning again, hopefully they can get that experience next year. But yeah, this year is individual, and it's going to be online. They're going to record. It's got to be a video. So we're going to video record the auditions and then upload them to IHSMA.
So that's part of it too, is that experience of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday in October and getting on the bus to, we always went to Washington, Iowa. I don't know if that's still where you guys go, but we go to Washington. So you'll appreciate this, being also a sports fan. We would go to Washington, Iowa, and my senior year, I was in one of the earlier quartets that auditioned, or the duets that auditioned. I think we auditioned like at 8:30. Instead of just sitting there and waiting for hours upon hours until the recall sheets came up. Well, my aunt and uncle live like 3 blocks away from the Washington high school. So I walked to my aunt and uncle's house and watched college football game day, and watched some college football games on TV while the rest of my friends sat in the gym.
Nap.
Yeah. So
yeah,
well, those are days you just those are days you don't forget.
In the gym with and I mean, you're stuck in the gym with 3 snare players that are trying to outdo each other. That's not fun, but it's not a perfect process, that's for sure. But I don't know how else to do it.
Right.
That would make it better. But it is a very unique process, and they don't get that experience this year. And so one of the things, All-State auditions usually look like this. We have I put them through the weeks. I put them through the ringer. They come to me for an hour session a week, where they do they prepare cuts. So I call them checkpoints, and they prepare the checkpoints, and it's a snip from every single piece, and that helps them learn how to practice and actually chunk their music into pieces and tackle it piece by piece. Now, by this time, they've already learned all of the music, but they're going through and they are taking it apart section by section and putting it back together and being artistic and being very intentional about the musical choices that they're making. So I'm kind of forcing them to do, some score study and to really pick apart the details. then they prepare all of that, and then they come to me for their hour meeting, and I sit in my chair at my piano, and they stand there with their music, and they basically give me a mock audition. And I give them their pitches at the piano, and then I sit back and I have a pad of paper and pen, and they sing and I write. And at the very end, they get to hear everything that I wrote down.
Got to get your notes.
And so they get immediate feedback. And so, yep. So they get notes at the end of every checkpoint rehearsal. That's going to have to look way different this year. And I actually really like checkpoint rehearsals. So that's very sad. But it's going to have to look different this year. I'm looking at doing stuff on Flipgrid and having them record their checkpoints, which I then would watch, and then we'll give them feedback in the form of an email instead of giving that to them verbally right there.
Sure.
So it's some of the most awesome and personal and human interactions that I have ever had with students have been during checkpoint rehearsals. You get to kind of, in the all-state process, we really get to know each other really well. And you get to have those interactions that you don't usually get to have with students that you see for 49 minutes every day, and then boom, they're off to the next class. So I don't get to have that this year. They don't get to have that this year with their groups. And so that's kind of sad. But so we then do mock auditions, usually at the end, where I do 2 weeks of mock auditions where they come and they choose a random cut, go prepare it for about a half an hour, come and do a mock audition for me where they introduce themselves, and we do everything that we possibly can that is just like all-state auditions. That may still happen in some form.
Now, because one of the big fun, exciting aspects of all-state auditions are you don't know what the sections are that you're going to be auditioning. You don't know which measures you're singing until that day. How are they simulating that with this recorded process, or is that going to be different this year?
That's still up in the air as of right now. IHSMA sent out a survey to Iowa high school teachers that are participating in All-State, asking them, would you like the cuts released in August so that you can prepare them, or would you like them released in October, a few days before, or like a week before the deadline? And so I'm not aware of a decision being made yet, but with audition day, the nice thing about audition day was it was over in a day. It was a long day, but we got to have I called it the All-State family dinner the night before, where we all hung out and sang together, and then go get some sleep, and then we do Washington High School all day the next day. So this is going to be stretched out over time because we are not going to get the same day results. This is going to take a lot of time to go through all of these audition videos, and the judges are looking at a drastically different process in terms of evaluating everybody that's auditioning.
Right. I was always jealous of the people who got to sleep the night before all-state auditions. I was always playing football on that Friday night. I remember my junior year, we played at Clinton, and we didn't get home until I want to say 11:45 or midnight. And so then I got home, you have to clean everything out of your locker because it's usually the last game of the year too, depending on if you made the playoffs or not. So then it's get home at 12:30 and then get 4 hours of sleep and get back to the high school by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's not good for your voice.
No, it's not.
But yeah, I mean, we've had a few football players try out and have a similar sort of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one point in our household. We've been in musicals together, and I've helped with the high school musicals and stuff. I've got some credentials as a singer, and my wife and I met in choir in college. And her one thing she loves to always tell our kids is that, everyone tells you how good of a singer Daddy is, but I was the one that made All-State. I was
That's cold.
Yeah. Oh, it's brutal. It's savage. But
see, I made Nebraska, the
sure.
Nebraska Music Educator Association. I made Allstate there, so I didn't have the Iowa Allstate experience at all.
See, my parents are both 4-timers, and my cousin is a 3-timer, and I have an uncle who is a 5-timer as a cellist. His teacher lied and said he was a freshman when he was in 8th grade.
Oh my god!
And then I'm the youngest, and I'm the one who didn't make it. I was a 3-year alternate, so that's my All-State experience.
And I've had this conversation so many times, and I know that we're focusing on masks here, but the All-State process, like I said, it is not a perfect process, and they really, I really can say this with confidence. The IHSMA really does everything that they can to make it as objective as possible.
Oh yeah,
but it's music.
Oh, I know. It's subjective,
and it's so subjective, and so that's kind of a powwow convo that we have every year before auditions, during auditions, on audition morning, after auditions. We talk about it a lot. This is a really subjective process, and it's great, when people get to participate for 2, 3, 4, and in the case of your uncle, 5 years.
Right. Yeah. Again, total fraud on that.
Yeah.
But that was like 1950 something or other. So
19.
So no, I'm not even kidding. Like my dad has 2 brothers. One was 21 years older. One was 20 years older. And this was his brother who's 20 years older. And so it was like, honestly, in like the 50s or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's
hey, E for effort.
Right. They figured out a way to game the system, and they did it. So
yeah,
it's like the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire.
Unethical, but okay, there it is.
There it is.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it's the juiced ball era of baseball. That was what All-State cello was in the 50s. But
okay.
So we're talking about the masks, and now are you pretty confident that this is going to be not a really cumbersome solution for the students? I know, like, we've returned to church as a family every once in a while, and our family's all wearing masks. And I know that my kids complain about having to wear masks for that, hour. But all of our kids need to get used to it because they're going to need to wear a mask at school in a couple of weeks. So is this a situation where they're going to have this mask specifically for choir? They're not going to wear this mask throughout the day, or is that an option that they have too?
That's correct. So this is only for choir. The reason, the study that I referenced earlier that's happening in Colorado, the University of Colorado at Boulder, the masks, so they are, the studies that they're doing, it involves instrumentalists, singers, and actors performing in a control room where they can measure the aerosols that are being expelled by the performer. And so this is, and I'm not going to go into all of the
parts per
details.
Million.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into all of that, mostly because I can't speak really intelligently about that. But one of the recommendations, so they had a first round preliminary result sort of deal go out for teachers, and these are preliminary results. They have not been fully interpreted. This is not peer reviewed, and it has not yet been duplicated. These are very preliminary, but some of the things that they're showing are very, they are very telling, and they're very clear. And so the full study is going to come out in December, I think, is when they're expecting that to come out. But one of the recommendations that they've made is that for any masks, and they call them performance masks, like the singer's mask, and they referred specifically to singers because these are becoming more well-known. The tests are not being done with masks like these. They're being done with medical grade masks.
Like the N95.
And so, like something that is fitted to your face.
Right. Okay.
Like specifically fitted to your face. So these are not N95s. And they need to be washed. They're cloth masks. The singing that we're going to be doing is going to be limited to 30 minutes at a time. And it's one of the many mitigatory efforts that we're taking to help protect our students from the viral spread. One of those steps to take, one of those mitigatory steps to take is when they are singing in this and expelling more droplets, they shouldn't be wearing this all day. And so this mask is only for the choir room. They're going to have their regular mask, come into the choir room, do a switch. I don't know exactly what those logistics are going to look like, so don't hold me to that.
No, yeah.
But they will switch out their regular mask for their singer's mask, wear the singer's mask for rehearsal, and then hang it back up, switch back into their regular mask, and then we will be washing this.
That sounds like a good plan. All right, so we like to end our stuff with having a little bit of fun, because we've been super straight-laced and nothing fun this whole interview. And we call it a segment that's called In the Crosshairs. It's a little play on Kraushaar.
Oh my God, that's so terrible.
Exactly. It's a dad joke.
Okay.
It's great. It is great.
It's terrible. I'm sorry. Can I talk really quickly about the construction of the mask? Yeah.
Yes. We totally forgot. We talked about it off air. We need to talk about it on air. Zip ties.
Yes, zip ties. So
and French stitch.
French seam.
French seams. Sorry.
Yes. That's okay. We've got the quilting cloth sold to us by Neil's Vacuum and Sewing Center on 2nd Ave. They're selling it to us at cost.
Nice.
Which is awesome. And then, so that obviously makes up the bulk of the mask. We then have the mask is made up of 3 different pattern pieces. All together, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of fabric that are all stitched together using, French seams, which is a seam that is encased in another seam, so you don't have those rough edges, those little frilly edges for fabric sewn together.
And that's going to make it more comfortable,
a little
right?
Less irritating. Yeah, it's less irritating to the skin, which the mask is held away from your face, but there are, around the cheeks and the jawline, it's going to touch your face. So a little bit more comfortable. The French seams also make up some structure so that it gives the mask its almost box-like shape on the top and bottom. And then there are 2 zip ties slipped into the front panel of the mask, which give it even more structure and hold it out from the face. And they give it a lot of stability so that mask does not collapse inward towards your mouth. Let's say when you take a breath in, it's not going to suck the mask in, and it keeps the mask away from your face. So much so that actually I can stick my tongue almost all the way out without touching the inside of the mask.
Prove it.
It gives you a lot of space. And then we have ear loops. I want myself to prove it.
I'm just kidding.
Stick out my tongue in the mask and what? Okay, so then ear loops, which what?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Keep going.
We have elastic ear loops, which we're gonna put in there for people. They're easily adjustable, and we can replace them with longer ones if we need to, but we're gonna give it plenty of slack so we can sew it down if people need to tighten it a little bit. And then people will have the freedom to, if they can even remove the elastic and put in, something that is a little bit more comfortable around their ears if they want to. So we've got fabric, thread, elastic, zip ties, interfacing, which actually serves as the casing for the zip ties. And so we've got request in for funding from the Community Foundation for their community continuity grant, and I am hoping that will come through. We are doing this all for less than $1,000, whereas buying masks would have been about $4,000.
Wow!
But
you have volunteers.
Power.
I was going to say you have volunteers helping make them too, correct?
lots of volunteers, and we actually spent about 2.5 hours today at Walnut Park Baptist Church, who very graciously opened their gymnasium for our use. Our head choral director is a member there, and so he got that set up for us. And we cut patterns for about 2.5 hours, and I had 10 volunteers, and we got all the entire bolt of fabric that I had all cut into pieces. So
That's awesome.
But we still need thread, zip ties, elastic, and interfacing in order to be able to actually make these masks. Right now I have fabric pieces and nothing to sew them together with. So if anybody is interested in volunteering and helping us with that, if anybody is interested in reaching out in terms of donations, they can contact me. They can just go to our website, www.muskiechoirs.org, and my email address is on there. It's teale.burford@mcstonline.org.
That is great. Hopefully we get lots of volunteers. You don't want me to sew things.
No, I imagine I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, can you hold a pair of scissors?
Poorly. It was a check. It was not a check plus on my elementary school report card. It was.
Well, I will. Also,
I think it was an S.
I will also need people to be running kits out to our sewers' houses.
Sure, I could maybe do that. I can do that.
You know, if you can drive.
Again, poorly.
I have a list of sewing volunteers. I have a list of sewing volunteers, and I have a list of non-sewing volunteers. And so obviously the sewing stuff goes to the sewing people only, and the non-sewing stuff goes to both. So anybody who wants to help out with the non-sewing stuff, right now that's limited because I don't have the materials yet.
Sure.
But we will need people to be delivering kits to our sewers' houses, because I don't particularly want to deliver everything to the houses. I would love to delegate that to volunteers dropping stuff off, knocking on the door, and then picking them up and bringing them back to me.
Yeah, and obviously doing everything in as safe a way as possible, because we're all trying to, mitigate that exposure and those contacts. And so the more people to volunteer, the fewer people they have to be in contact with, and it just makes it better for everybody.
And some of our sewers, are more at risk.
Right.
And so they've told me, I'm not going to go out in public for this, but if you bring it to my house, I'll do it. And yeah, absolutely. And also all of our volunteers today were masked the entire time. We had hand sanitizer. We were properly spaced out in a gymnasium with an HVAC system that changed over the air 5 times an hour. So we're taking the measures that we need to take to keep ourselves as reasonably, safe as we possibly can. And we will continue to do that. And like I said, we've got a lot of measures that are intended to keep our students as safe as possible. That number will never get to 100% as long as we are, in the situation that we're in right now. But we have a lot of plans. Jonathan Wren, head director, and I have a lot of plans in order to keep our students as safe as we reasonably can.
Yeah,
and masks is a huge part of that, because masking is a huge defense against the spread of this virus.
I've got mine right here. I mean,
is that a T-shirt?
No, it's one. So I have a giant head, as you know. It's one of these things.
Oh yeah. So I just imagined you walking around with a T-shirt, like the neck just like under your nose.
High school Joel may have tried to do something like that. I'm not gonna lie, but because I saw a picture of a guy with a dryer hose. But I haven't tried to talk really or sing with one of these things on. So yeah, I can feel it here. If I had been relying on this, it would be a challenge to properly do what you're needing your students to do just by wearing this. So that's why I brought it down here, just in case I needed to try it out.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I'm no longer straight-laced. So let's.
Okay. So
we can go to the next segment. Sorry.
It's fine. Now it's time to go in the crosshairs. And so You made your Muscatine Community Theater debut in a musical, South Pacific, where you had to be across from a really obnoxious male lead who was played by
Yes.
me. And
Mm-hmm.
in the event that we're kind of both in a similar situation of life where we have busy jobs, but we also have small children, that when we're not working, we actually want to hang out with our kids. That someday you could see yourself maybe performing again. Is there a role out there that you would really like to perform in either like a community theater production or some sort of concert setting that you just have really always wanted to sing?
So this spring, I auditioned for Puccini's Madama Butterfly,
Sure.
and I was selected to be in the chorus, and the production was canceled. And I, from the time I was about a sophomore in high school, have really, I guess it's kind of a tired expression, but I've always dreamed of performing opera. That's it's something that I would love to do. And I'm not saying like I want to play Madama Butterfly.
Right.
I want to be like in the chorus would be fine. And then, if I got a lead, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But that in terms of a particular show, I don't really have a particular show. But I really long to perform again.
Same.
And it's not been something that has been a huge opportunity for me. Not even in college. I was in choirs all the time. I wasn't
Right.
performing on my own. And it wasn't until I figured out, true story, you have to practice to get better.
What?
Weird, I know. So I discovered this, and I think the idea started catching on after I stumbled upon it with other students as well. But I started practicing my sophomore year of college and weirdly got a lot better.
Isn't it? I think
So,
I have the same story. That was about the same timeline that I figured that out. After a voice
it
teacher
took me
literally,
so long.
I got thrown out of a practice or out of a voice lesson. I walked in, and I mentioned the sight singing soapbox because I was really good at it. And
Uh-huh.
I walk in and I'm sight singing, and the director figured, or my teacher figured it out, and he kicked me out. He's like, "Come back here when you practice this." And then I came back in, and he taught me how to practice and like plunked it out. He's like, "So you sit down and you play these two measures, and you do it perfectly, and then you do the next two measures, and then you do those four together." And there's like 128 measures in the song, and so it's like, geez, this is not going to be fun. But I'm a better musician because of Dr. Krieger throwing me out of that rehearsal, out of that lesson.
I darn near got myself thrown out of lessons as well for the same reasons, because it was just so obvious to my teacher. She's like, "Are you practicing?" And I'm like, and I started practicing, and I remember I showed up to a lesson, and it's same thing. I didn't know how to practice.
Right.
I knew how to practice piano. That's all I knew how to practice. Nobody ever actually taught me how to practice. And I'm not saying that it was somebody else's responsibility to make sure that I knew how to do that. That was my responsibility to seek it out. But I just didn't know. And so I just didn't do it because I wasn't confident enough to go to a practice room and practice because I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like an idiot. And of course, you go into a practice room at a college and everybody can hear you. And so there's no privacy whatsoever.
Right.
And so that was also a barrier that I just could not get past. I started practicing my sophomore year. I walked into my voice teacher's office and she said, "Wow, you sound really nice." And I said, "Thanks, I've been practicing." And we both just started laughing so hard because it just took so long for me to get there. It was just so sad. And like, I look at some of my students that I've had and how incredibly hard they work as high schoolers. And I did not work hard as a high schooler.
No.
I did not. I fell back on my talent, and I was fortunate enough to have enough talent that I could get by on it. But I wasn't getting any better. I was getting no better, and I just envy the work ethic of some of my students, and it's one of them, Caleb Drawbaugh, he's gone off to
He's in Prague.
huge things.
Yeah.
Huge things.
Yeah, he did that internship in the Czech Republic. First off, just getting into Northwestern University in Chicago is a feat in itself, not just into the arts program, but just the academic program. And it's just tremendous kid to work with. I've had the opportunity to work with him as well, not to the extent that you have, obviously, but it's you guys let me kind of tag along on some of the musical vocal coaching stuff. And that's always fun to work with some of those kids. So I asked you the first question and you said opera and you brought up Madame Butterfly. This is off the cuff, but this is your second question. What 90s rock album is actually a rock opera loosely based off of Madame Butterfly?
Based off of Madame Butterfly?
Uh-huh.
A rock opera.
Yeah.
90s?
Yep. I believe 1995 to be exact.
I have this feeling that when you tell me, I'm going to be mad at myself that I don't know it.
It's the Pinkerton album.
I don't know.
It's the Pinkerton album by Weezer.
Really?
Yeah, if you go listen to it,
Weezer.
They're my favorite band of all time. But if you go and I was embarrassed, like sitting in my friend's Jeep in high school, we're listening to the album, and I know because of my childhood and who my parents are, like, oh, this is loosely based off of Madame Butterfly, Pinkerton, all this stuff. And the last song is called Butterfly, and it's everything is in a chordal progression and it's through composed. So track 1 all the way through the last track, everything ties in together for the most part. It's a brilliantly composed rock album, but I'm not going to sit there at 15 years old and nerd out and tell my friends about all the little intricacies of how this compares to Puccini's opera. So
yeah, at 15, that's risky behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the riskiest behavior.
No, that's true. Not the riskiest, but yeah.
Okay, so that was my last question. It's always fun to get together. We are friends, but we also, I think, have a shared passion for music in our schools. I was scared when all of this was coming down with COVID as to what was it going to be for arts education. Because I just know from my personal experience, I knew that I was mediocre academically, and I needed fifth period for a cappella choir to kind of clear my brain and to walk into a room where I felt like I belonged and was good at something. Because Lord knows my geometry class was not the place I was going to feel comfortable and that I was good at something. And so when I heard that maybe we weren't going to be able to have those classes, that scared me, because I know there's a lot of kids out there that are like me and they need that creative outlet. They need that class to express musically in. And I'm thankful that you guys have figured out a solution that makes that safer and accessible, and we can maybe move forward as normal as we can in these crazy times.
Yeah, the mask, like I said, is the first step. It's one of many different measures that we're taking to keep our kids as reasonably safe as we possibly can. And so we really do need the community's help in order to accomplish this, and to make sure that every singer has a singer's mask in their hands free of charge. And that was something that I was very adamant about. These need to be free of charge. And
right.
Then if they want another one, then, we can look into options after that. But every singer, like I said, this is a rare chance to provide just a little bit of semi-normalcy in a world where normal is no longer normal. And so if our kids can keep singing in relative safety with the help of the singer's mask, then there's no reason that we shouldn't be making sure that they all have one in their hands. And wearing a mask is not comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable, but we're going to be able to continue to make the art that we love to make by wearing one. And I think that's something that the vast majority of our kids are going to, they're just going to jump in. They're going to say, yeah, let's do this. And we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that that virus is not spreading in our classrooms, again, to the most reasonable degree that we possibly can.
Yeah, because it affects all of us, because, your students are also ones working at some of the retail stores that we all have to go to. They're also, some of them are our kids. I mean, there are people watching out there listening. I mean, your kids are going to school. I know my kids are going to be returning to school in a few weeks, and we want them to be as safe as possible, because while I still have the luxury to work from home for a little while longer, my kids are going to be in school. And so we need to mitigate that exposure so that we can just keep it from spreading.
Yeah. This is a community. The Singer's Mask itself is a move to help protect our community. It's not just our students that we're protecting.
Yep.
It's their families. I mean, we've got a lot of students in multi-generational homes. We've got students, like you said, they're working in our community. They are working at Hy-Vee and Fairway and Aldi, and they're working at, the different, restaurants that we order food from. And we need to keep our community masked when they're in public, because we need to follow the science. We need to make sure that we are masking and we are doing our part to protect our community, because without our community up and running, this is going to get a lot harder. So
right.
We need to take those measures to make sure that we're protecting our community. And that's something that, as you know, schools are very familiar with.
Yep.
Schools do a lot to protect and promote our community. And this is another thing that the MHS choral department, at Susan Clark Junior High and Muscatine High School are going to do to help protect our community, because it's what needs to be done. So
yep.
We're doing it.
Yep. And you can control what you can control, and you guys have the ability to have some control over what you do in your classrooms, and you're taking that step. So huge thank yous to Neil Sewing Center and Vacuum Center down on 2nd Street, right across the street from First National Bank. If you haven't ever been in there, it's a fine place, and they are helping out, providing material at cost. So if you want to donate material, please contact them, and they will help you get the material to the right place. And also reach out to Teale Burford. You can go to, is it muskiechoirs.com? Is that what the website is? I think I didn't write it down. I usually take notes.
It's www.muskiechoirs.org.
.org.
So MUSKIECHOIRS.
Just Muskie, not Muskies.
Correct. Yeah. Muskiechoirs.org.
And we'll put the links at the bottom of this interview too. We'll see if we can get those added to that too. So you could just click on right through there from our link here on Discover Muscatine. Teale, thank you so much. We got to figure out a way for us to sing again as adults.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just karaoke, we got to figure something out.
I agree.
This is all over. Agree. We're going to a karaoke spot, and we're gonna do
duets. We're gonna do a duet tour. Karaoke duet tour.
I'm in. What is your go-to karaoke song before we go?
Obla Di Obla Da.
Wow, deep cut Beatles. That's a weird one. I'm just gonna be honest. That's a little bit of a strange one.
I am no good at karaoke.
Me either. Isn't that funny? Like people who are like musicians. It's like the stress is people think you're going to be good, and it's like, no, I don't really actually know the words to most popular songs. Like I'm reading along. Brandy is my big one. That's
I love that song.
By the Looking Glass. Yeah, that or a Vehicle by the Ides of March, which isn't really it's not good. Like the opening, no, the lyrics haven't aged well, but it's just kind of fun. It's just kind of...
for a duet, really fun one to do. Wonder Boy by Tenacious D.
Heck yeah! I
have done that duet with my friend Corey Derringer. He now has a PhD in something really complicated.
Sure.
But he was in the UNI Varsity Men's Glee Club, and we were on the Iowa tour, and we went down to the hotel bar, the dingy hotel bar, and we sang Wonder Boy, and we did the harmony at the end, and everybody in the bar was like, "Yeah!"
Isn't that hilarious? Isn't that hilarious when you're at a karaoke spot and they're just dumbfounded that people can actually sing harmony.
I
We went to a piano bar in Oklahoma City on a choir tour in college, and it's like, so you have 10, 12 reasonably good singers walk in. And I felt bad actually for the guy playing the piano, because he's used to like drunks like coming in and like him being able to like show off. And we kind of embarrassed him. I'll just be totally honest. We were sober and we had talent, but it was a fun night that we all remember in Oklahoma.
You know
City.
what? That pushed him out of his comfort zone, and he's a better musician.
Yeah, we made him bring his level up, which is what you do
exactly
with your all-state kids. You push them out of their comfort zone.
That's what I do with all my kids.
Yes, all of your kids.
All my kids.
And I can attest to that.
Especially the all-staters.
I have sang with Teale in a show, and I've been the person at rehearsal who wasn't trying hard enough and had her look at me and say, can you not suck today? Like, you said that to me once.
I never.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Maybe with my eyes, but not with my mouth.
Maybe I'm just misremembering it, but it's possible. But you were disappointed in my effort. You were disappointed in my effort.
Well, I feel bad about that now.
Don't feel bad. I deserved it. I was coming in winging it. So, all right. Well, we'll let you go. And I just appreciate you coming on. And I appreciate everything you're doing for our community, not just on the music side, but all over. You're a very, very important person and try hard for all of the kids in our community. And education's obviously affected you guys. You're a teacher. Your husband is a professor at the college level. So everyone's affected by all of the craziness that's going on. So appreciate you taking the time and then spending some time with us tonight on TBD with Coach Kraushaar. Thanks so much, Teale.
Thank you.
So that was this episode of TBD with Coach Kraushaar, brought to you by Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning. And stay tuned. Next week, we'll have Mike Bridenstine, stand-up comedian and Muscatine class of 1998, who will be our guest. So tune in next week. That's a great interview with Mike, talking about kind of how comedy has been affected by COVID-19 and things that he's doing after graduating from Muscatine 22 years ago. So we'll see you next week, and I will talk to you later. Don't forget to check out Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning for all of your HVAC and outdoor living needs. Joel Kraushaar here again with Recipe TBD. Tonight, what we're going to do on our Green Mountain Daniel Boone Prime Plus pellet grill is we're going to reverse sear this bone-in ribeye. Something I wanted to try for a while. Finally have a night where I can go ahead and give some extra time to it. So right now what this has done is it's coming up to room temperature. Is really important when you cook steak and really any kind of beef, that you try to let the chill from the refrigerator come off of it a little bit, because that'll help you get the doneness that you want without overcooking the outside of the meat. And so this has been out for about 2 hours actually. And about an hour ago, I put a rub on that's just a little homemade rub. It's garlic powder, chili powder, onion powder. I put a little bit of beef-based granulated beef broth in there as well, just to kind of really accentuate that beef flavor. And then I put a lot of kosher salt and black pepper. And so that's what the rub is on this steak. So my grill's coming up to temperature. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the grill at 190 degrees and kind of let it just smoke at that lower temperature until the internal part of the meat gets to about 115 degrees, give or take. It's going to take about a half hour, I think, to do that. And then what we'll do is then we'll turn the pellet grill up to 500 degrees, and then we'll do the good hard sear on the outside. So fingers crossed this works. This is kind of the recipe that I took from the Green Mountain Grill recipe book that kind of comes with your grill. I use that thing a ton. So not just a great grill, but you get a lot of resources that come along with it. Wish me luck. So I'm out here at the grill, and so what we're going to do is we're going to get this bone-in ribeye on my Daniel Boone Wi-Fi Plus grill, and I really like what I'm hearing. It's holding steady at 200 degrees. I love the sound of that fan. Just means everything is going the way it's supposed to go. So I'm just going to put that on here, just right there in the middle. I did a good cleaning of this grill today, So that way when we heat it up, we don't have any potential flare-ups or anything like that. I learned that the hard way, that if you have a dirty grease tray, you can potentially get yourself into some trouble when you heat that thing up. So I'm just going to close the lid and let this thing smoke a little bit and kind of get the internal part of this meat up to temperature, and then we'll do a hard sear at the end. Alright, so now I've got the grill turned up to 500 degrees, and I'm going to put this back on, and so you can just hear that sizzle. Maybe move it up here a little bit more. Just hear that sizzle. So we are good to go here. So now we'll start to just cook this like a steak and sear it off. So now I'm just going to do my flip here. Try to get those diamond sear marks on it. See how that goes. So just about 30 seconds will go on this. Trying to get some more of that good diamond color, and you can see smoke coming off of this from the, look at that fat that's in that ribeye. You know, see it starting to render on the inside too. Just operating just like a regular grill would, or my gas grill. You know, it's one of those things where I was always hesitant with the pellet grill because people said you couldn't grill like this, but these Green Mountains, man, the fact that I can get to 500 degrees and sear like this, I'm excited to see how this turns out. See, look at that sear. Look at how hard that sear is. On the outside, that rub caramelizing. There's a little bit of sugar in that rub. I forgot to say that. There's a little tiny bit of brown sugar. Some good char. You can see where at this spot in my grill might be a little bit hotter, which is fine. Still learning that. Getting some pull away from the bone. So we'll just let this finish on this side and then let it rest. Alright, so I'm getting ready to pull this off of the grill. What I like to do is actually just go ahead and touch it. And that's right around the rear, and I can just do that by feel. It's just some practice. And that's rare. This is just how I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this steak. And then we'll let it rest, and we'll cut it up for you. Alright, so we've let the steak rest about 10-15 minutes. I'm just cutting. Wow, you can just see how tender that is just cutting into it. And let's see where we hit the doneness mark. I was going for like a medium rare, and actually I hit closer to medium, which I'm okay with. It's still, you can see all the juice that's still in that meat, and the fat's rendering throughout the whole ribeye. And so this is going to be a delicious supper. Sauteed some vegetables to go along with it. So this has been recipe TBD. This is a reverse seared ribeye on the Green Mountain pellet grill, Daniel Boone Wi-Fi Prime Plus, and I got mine from Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning here in Muscatine, Iowa. That's our local dealer, and just showing you the versatility yet again. Full-on grilling with this thing. I could have cooked this thing regularly, just turned the grill up to 500 and just done a good sear, but get that extra smoke flavor if you have the time to reverse sear. So thanks for watching, and like and review if you want in the comments, and check us out at discovermuscatine.com.